Well, good morning. Welcome to SBJ Weekend Review. If you haven't noticed, Chad is not currently to my left. Before you click off, because I was talking to some people at church yesterday, and I said, I might have to do the podcast episode solo. I know Sam Bagwell instantly said, well, I'm not listening to it. So, before you click off, although I could and would be happy to talk solo for an hour straight, I'm very well capable. We have a special guest that's going to be joining us here in a little bit. I told him to get here a little bit late so I can get through, the church review stuff, and he doesn't have to sit here through that silently because that's always awkward for them, I guess. So we're going to get him in here at 9:30, and we have some questions that we're going to ask him. But real quick, just to kick us off, we had some comments last week that need to be addressed. A couple episodes ago had just talked about how I've gotten better at wearing shoes while we film the podcast so my toes aren't in the frame. I've also moved the camera up so that you can't see underneath the table at my feet. Well, last week's episode, I had stretched my foot out onto this chair over here in the corner. I didn't realize it until I saw the comment, and I went back through and tried to find it. The corner through like half the episode, you can just see my foot sticking out the bottom there. So I do deeply apologize for that. I'll try to be better. But that being said, the first comment was from my mother. She said Keagan with the toes, which at first I was like, what is she talking about? You can't even see underneath the table. Then, of course, saw that. Rick Wood commented, Keagan, one day your mom is going to hurt you for talking trash about her. And Rick, I'll just say this. I'm 21 years going strong talking trash to her, and I'm still living. So I don't think that day is going to come. Although she did show me the other day, flexed her tricep. Pretty impressive, the triceps that she's got on her. But then the last comment was from my cousin Michaela. She said, we've been on the field. She's talking about the Rangers baseball field. She said, we've been on the field a few times. The tour is amazing if you ever get the chance to do it. And she also says, Kaysen is so ready because we're going to the Rangers-Astros game there with them this summer. And I would love to do the tour of it. I've already done the tour of the greatest baseball field, baseball stadium in all of MLB, and that's the Red Sox Fenway Park. I got to go tour that with my cousin Colton, who was on a couple episodes ago, my grandpa, all that family. It was an absolute great time. To kick us off with the review, obviously Dad wasn't here Sunday. We had a speaker come in who I was very excited to hear speak. I've never heard him speak before. I do claim that he is got to be top 3 funniest guys in the church, maybe the funniest guy in the church. This guy can make me laugh pretty good. That was Mickey Carver. He came and spoke, and it was very, very good. I didn't get to hear the first service because I usually go to my office and study up for Sunday school real quick, just get some refreshers in my head before I step into Sunday school. But stepped in there. We played drum. We were trying to figure out mics because I guess I'm not sure what pack they're supposed to use. I'm not part of the sound group guys. But we have Dad's mic pack. We tried to use another one, but every time we would plug a mic into it, it would make this awful noise that was so loud. And so the only mic that worked well with that pack is the mic that Jeff sings with. So it's this big Britney Spears puffball of a mic, and that would just look ridiculous for him to speak with. But I think they had just figured it out, and it was working. And then in the first service, when he flipped on that mic pack, it made that same awful noise. And we think it was because it was coming through those wedges that were there on stage, and just the feedback was very, very bad. I had Dad's lapel on, and I was like, all I'm doing is announcements. I don't really need a whole lapel. I can just do a handheld. But they were like, no, you just wear that. And I was like, okay, well, just like Dad has multiple times, I had somehow flipped the mute switch, and so when I got up to do announcements in the first service, there was no audio going through the speakers, and it is fully my fault. It's not the sound guy's fault. I looked up at Sam Bagwell, and I said, yo, you got me turned on, and he just went like this, and I was like, all right, well, I guess it's my fault. Of course, I looked down later, I had it on mute. So then the second service, we just decided we were just going to give him Dad's lapel mic, and I just took over one of the handheld singing mics, which is what we should have done to start with, in my opinion. But it worked out great. I know Mickey had to use a handheld during the first service, and he said he struggled with it because he talks with his hands a lot. And they were trying to find him this like mic stand, but I guess we didn't really have the one that we were looking for. Andy said we used to have one that had a weight on it so that the mic didn't pull it down like it does with the other ones. But we couldn't find it. Sorry, I'm tired this morning. I stayed up late again watching the Spurs, which I'll be excited to talk about when we get into sports recap here in just a second. But second service that I did sit through, it went very, very well. The music was really good. I love the two hymns that I don't know if the second one's a hymn or not, but I love those songs that we played. It was a good time. Didn't drop any sticks this week, which is always good. Mickey kind of talked about, what's your Damascus Road point, talking about the conversion of Saul to Paul, where he has this life-changing moment. Obviously, I think what people don't realize often when looking at Saul, we just think that, he just killed Christians, he was a bad guy. But what we don't realize is he grew up learning the law, studying the law, and this new age of Christians, I guess Christians wouldn't be the term for it, I guess that would be the term for the new age of people. This new group followed Christ, and they called themselves the Way. And Paul thought, hey, these guys are heretics. They're going against what we believe in, and we need to remove these heretics before it spreads. So in his mind, he's doing what's right. He's doing what needs to be done to keep advancing the kingdom of God. He thinks these people are going to lead others astray. What he didn't know is that what these people believed in and were following was actually the truth. It was the way. And so kind of this eye-opening moment that he's focusing on is when Saul has this interaction on the road to Damascus where obviously the Lord starts speaking. He said, who are you, Lord? And we see he responds with, I'm the guy that you're persecuting. And so then he has this realization, oh wow, Jesus is who he says he is, and these guys are actually telling the truth. And all this effort that he was putting into taking down the Way, he ended up becoming the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest evangelist of all time. Think of all the stuff he's done. Some Bibles have maps where you can see, his passage of everywhere he went, spreading the good news and all that he accomplished. He wrote half of the New Testament, and just think, man, all this effort, this guy that everybody thought was this evil, awful man, but you change his perception on things and all that he accomplishes for God. We were talking the other day, me and Dad, and somebody else talking about this guy who we've gotten to know pretty well. He's kind of new to the church world, and we were just talking about how much of an outgoing personality this guy has and how awesome he is, and he's so good with people, and everybody that comes across him loves him. And we were like, man, if you get him on the case for Christ, think about all the people that this guy could reach just with his personality. And so what Mickey was kind of using that story to promote is how are we as Christians claiming to be Christians, but then stopping at getting saved. He's saying, hey, we all have a role, whether it's in the church, outside of the church, or both. We have a job that we're supposed to be doing. Too many Christians just get saved and stay at home and don't do nothing. He used an example that I thought was really, really good as a movie lover. He pointed to two movies, Titanic and Hacksaw Ridge. And in Titanic, there was this guy with his family in one of the life rafts, and they saw the captain of the life raft saw that there was other people that were drowning in the water that could be saved. And the guy said, no, hey, we got my family. We're good. Let's go. And that's the mindset that too many Christians honestly subconsciously have, where we're like, okay, me and my house are good. I don't need to go out and keep saving other people. And then he points to the movie Hacksaw Ridge, which is a movie about Desmond Doss. I don't know if it's a true story. If it is, it's pretty awesome. It's a great war movie. But a guy doesn't want to carry a gun because of moral conflicts. He just goes in as a medic, unarmed, and they're up on this ridge, and it's just this bloodbath. People are dying, and he's going out into the battlefield. People are shooting over him, around him, trying to shoot him, and he's going out and rescuing people and bringing them back one at a time. They're dragging him on this mat thing, if I remember correctly. And every time he'd get back, he would say, just one more. And he'd go out and get another one. He'd say, just one more. And he'd go out and get another one. Mickey was saying, this is the kind of heart, this is the kind of attitude that we should have towards the lost, that, hey, every single day we wake up going, God, put somebody in my path. Allow me to be a light to somebody that is lost in this dying world. And I thought it was really good. And then he talked about some of his stories and experiences with prison ministry, which I thought was very, very cool. I knew about his prison ministry stuff, but I've never heard like stories in depth, how it all came about. And so that was really, really fun to hear. If you didn't get to hear Mickey speak, we did a Facebook Live. You can go to our Facebook page and rewatch old sermons and stuff. But yeah, that one's going to be the most recent one on there. I highly recommend, if you missed it, please go watch that. I know it's a common trend that when people find out Dad's going to be out of town, a lot of people just stay at home, which really upsets me. I don't know. I find it silly. You hear the same guy talk every week. You would think it'd be nice to get to hear something a little different, get to hear a different style of teaching. Of course, when you got a guy like Mickey up there, it's going to be funny. I had laughed several times, but we got to hear about his prison ministry where he goes into these prisons, and they have these church services within the prison, and I think that is such a cool ministry, because so many people would look at somebody that's in prison and say they've gotten what they deserve, they're good, let them go, and seeing that there's these group of men that has this heart to say, hey, no, even they deserve, we're no better than they are, they deserve to hear the word just as much or even more, and so they go out and pursue that. And he told a story about a guy that's in there. He was going to be in that jail the rest of his life, and he's in there singing about the goodness of God and how happy he is and how he is free in Christ. And I just think that's super, super cool and super powerful. And I just love hearing people. There's a movie that say people love what other people are passionate about. And I think you can tell very clearly while Mickey was speaking that is something he's passionate about. And obviously, he even had tears at one point, and it makes it more interesting. You see this guy clearly cares about this. He's passionate about this, and the confidence, the delivery on it is going to be so much better. That's what Dusty came up to me and said, man, you can tell he's so passionate about it because of the confidence when he's talking about that. And I thought it was really cool. I was intrigued. I even asked him, I said, hey, if there's ever an opportunity where me or Dad can come help out with that, I think that'd be sick, because just hearing him talk about it got me fired up about it, and I was like, that seems like a really, really cool opportunity. And something that we might be able to be a part of. But like I said, I'm going to do my recap. Dad didn't have a Sunday school. I believe Trent Ellis taught for his class, which I don't know how that went. I asked his wife and Brandy, and they both said it was good, but I think that they're just lying because they like him. There's no telling. I actually really do want to hear Trent teach one day. I think that'd be cool. I really like him. He's become a good friend of ours. And so super grateful for him being willing to step in and teach. Super grateful for all the men and women in the church that stepped up to make things still happen. I think it's good for, this isn't like, I don't know. I think it's good for a pastor to be able to, if he has something that he needs to do, that's very, very important. Obviously Dad doesn't miss. He misses maybe 2 Sundays a year, but it's comforting and reassuring for him when he steps away to know that, hey, there's a good group of people that's going to get everything where it needs to be. If something goes wrong, we have a good group of guys that are willing to step in and problem solve and troubleshoot to get the end result. And so I'm super grateful for everybody that stepped up and made everything happen. Y'all make our lives so much easier, and we're appreciative, and that doesn't go unnoticed. So that being said, we were in Ecclesiastes in my class, and we're kind of getting to the end of this whole thing. Trying to remember, every time we're about to film the podcast, I go, all right, let me go back over my notes so I can remember. But then the second this camera turns on, all that information that was just in my head about what I taught in Sunday school is down the drain, and it's gone. But I know kind of one of the main themes that we were talking about today, this past Sunday, was just trusting God's direction in your life. We look at the rules that He has in place, and we think like, oh, there's so much that He's expecting of us that there's no way we're going to be able to have fun or have a good life, that these rules are coming out of a place other than just because He loves us and we can trust that. And so we kind of were also talking about, different bosses. I said a lot of you aren't working right now. Some of you are. You very rarely hear somebody talking about their boss and say, like, man, I love that guy. It just doesn't happen often. Usually if there's somebody put in place to tell you what to do or give you rules, you tend to resent them just a little bit. And so that was kind of the main idea that we were talking about there. You're going to have these people in place, and God's put these people in power for a reason, whether it's your boss, even if it's the president. A lot of times we see people who get voted in as president, and everybody goes, well, that's not my president. But ultimately, God's put that person in that place for a reason, and you have to trust God's direction. We talked about how you're supposed to submit to all authority. Hey, come on in. You can have a seat right here. Our special guest just joined us. There's people put in place, and you just have to trust that God has them there for a reason. And we talked about how you're supposed to submit to that authority, unless it's them directly giving you instruction that contradicts God. Anything other than that, you respect, put your head down, follow it. And I told them, hey, you aren't working right now, so a lot of you don't have a boss, but every single one of you is in school, and you have to submit to the authority of your teacher, which is something I always struggled with, because I told him a story about me throwing a stapler across the room at my friend's head, and then him crawling underneath my desk, and I got written up, not because I threw the stapler, but because he was underneath my desk. And I was frustrated because I got in trouble for something I didn't do, but I very clearly did something that I should have gotten in trouble for. But anyways, here to my left is Mr. Alan Box. He was kind enough to join us this morning. How we doing, Alan?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Wrapping up Sunday recap, and then we'll get into some of your stuff here. So that was kind of my Sunday school, just telling them, you got to submit to authority. It stinks. We don't like it. We resent the people that are in charge of us. But kind of what Solomon was talking about is your life is so much better and so much easier if you just put your head down, trust God's direction in your life, trust that God has put this person over you for a reason. Even if it's just for a season, you put your head down and do what you're told for that season. But that's what I talked about Sunday school. Like I said, Mickey Carver killed it, and we were super thankful to have him up there. I really enjoyed what he was talking about. And so that is Sunday recap. Joining us today, Mr. Alan Box. I was telling y'all earlier, before I had talked to Alan, I was telling a few people I might have to do the podcast by myself. And Sam Bagwell said, well, then I'm not listening if it's just going to be you talking for an hour. And I said, well, then I'm going to have to find a guest. And the first person that popped into my head was Mr. Alan Box. I went and asked him, and he was kind enough to say yes. And so we got Alan here today. Alan does a lot of things around the church, some of which goes unnoticed because he just does so much that you wouldn't expect. Him and his wife Juju, we're super grateful. They were such a nice addition to our church because they've been such a blessing just to our family, but also to the church, and we're super grateful to have them. So what are all the many hats that you would say that you wear here at the church?
Whew. I'm always in the background for something.
Yeah.
So, and it's just whatever needs to be done. I enjoy helping, so it is just a lot of oddball stuff. I help with security. We've got a lot of great guys that help with that. I deal with repairing a lot of things. So if something's broke, a lot of times I'll look at it and see what we can do to get things up and going again. So just handyman. Whatever needs to be done, I don't mind helping with it. So.
Yeah, and that's the kind of attitude that we're trying to teach the teens to have. Is hey, whatever you need me to do, I'll do, and that's very admirable. And it's so nice to have somebody to fall back on like that when because there's some things that happen here, and me and Dad are just sitting there scratching our heads, and we go, I don't know nothing about this. And Alan has stepped in so many times and saved our butts. But yeah, security was like the main thing that I think we were going to talk about today. I texted Dad and I said, hey, Alan's going to be on the pod. What should we talk about? And he said, ask him questions about security. And I said, perfect. So we got a few questions for you about that. Also, you've also served. Are you currently a deacon or a trustee?
I am.
Okay. So I blanked on that. But yeah, he's also on the board. He helps out with the decision making and stuff. And it probably helps keep everybody riled down in the meetings because I've heard it gets pretty angsty at times. The first question, we just kind of basic, how do you go about security? Why is it important? Things like that. Obviously a lot of people would think, well, a church doesn't need security because, God's going to be protecting that building or who would come and harm a church, that you wouldn't be expected. So kind of why is that important? How do you go about it, and things like that?
And I wish we didn't need church security. To me, it's very sad that we're in a time period where we have to watch everything that happens at the church, everything that's going on around the church. So, 10 years ago, probably didn't need church security, especially a church. We're, Jasper, Georgia. We're not in a big town or close to a big town. But today, unfortunately, I think most churches, synagogues and all you've got to have somebody that's watching for, there's just evil in this world, and we've got to guard against it, watch and make sure the evil doesn't come through the doors. I hate that we have to do it, but we do now. Our job is to watch what's happening around the church, the people coming and going, and if there's something that's suspicious or that doesn't look right, look into it a little bit. So we've got a dozen guys, great guys. We've got deputies. We've got former military security, military police guys. So we are super fortunate to have a lot of good guys that help, a lot of guys that have done similar jobs for a long time. So we're just so blessed to have the guys that we've got, and that just watch out and watch for any problems that arise, and hopefully address them before they get into the door. So.
Yeah. Well, and those are the kind of guys that you can have confidence in if something does happen. Whereas just some random redneck dude that goes to our church is like, yo, I'm going to start bringing my gun and I'm going to be part of the security team. It's like, well, I probably wouldn't have as much faith in that guy as I do someone who's worked police or military and kind of has been through certain training and has this mindset for it. But yeah, we have a pretty solid squad of guys who's very well trained and ready for if anything did happen. Obviously, we don't expect something to happen, but we'd much rather be safe than sorry. Especially, I know there was a lot of discussion with the kids and how we need to think about locking certain doors and only keeping certain ones open during that time, because obviously the kids are what we want to protect. Now, the setup that we have for them, we're honestly pretty lucky to have. There's one way to get up to the kids' room, and they have to go past the entire security team to get up there. And so the kids are very, very well protected. Obviously, the white door by the nursery and stuff, I think it's locked now, isn't it? Once the services start.
So for church, all doors that are open, there's a security guy at any door that's open.
Okay.
So, and another thing is, everybody that goes to this church is part of the security team, because if you ever see anything or are concerned about something, please let me know. When you get the feeling that something's not right, that's something that we do need to look into.
Yeah.
And if in your gut something doesn't feel right, then you've seen something that has triggered that. So if you ever do see something that you're concerned about, please let me know or one of the guys know, so that we can look at it and address it. So
it's one of the cases where assuming the best about someone could get you in trouble. Where you might as well just obviously not approach them, but go ahead and bring it to the security team just so it's on their radar, because a lot of times your gut is correct, and there's things that obviously as a church we let everybody in. And we're not doing like background checks before people come into the place. So there could be some guy that walks in that, we know nothing about, but we let him in because this is a church and we're trying to reach lost people. And then we find out he's not here for the right reasons. And if you had a weird feeling about it, you could have saved, number of people. We see there is shootings in churches a lot. I think it's becoming more frequent now, like you said. But, the Bible says, don't be surprised that the world hates you. They hated me first. So we do have enemies out there, and it's not, although it's unexpected here in Jasper with our small church, the odds are never at zero.
Well, and that's the thing is, small church, Jasper, Georgia. We're not in an urban area and all. The chances are low, but they're not zero. So that's why we do what we do. Is if there's an issue, we'd like to resolve it in the parking lot and not let it get into the building. But we're here if there is a problem.
Yeah. Another question I had. What are some things that you teach the guys to look for, or girls? I don't know if there's any girls on the squad or not, but what do you teach them? Like, hey, these are things to look out for, and is there certain things that you tell them to look out for that could just like set off red flags for someone that's pretty just innocently just coming to church that could be misconstrued?
And there's several things to look for. If somebody's overly nervous. And people are nervous, especially if you're coming to a new church. So you've got to think through that a little bit. But so I'm normally at the front door. I normally shake most people's hands when they come in through the front door. If something doesn't look right or feel right, especially if it's somebody new that's coming, if it doesn't feel right or look right. We do sit behind somebody that's new that we have concerns about. So if there is something that doesn't feel right to us, we do watch that, and because our job is to make sure that everybody that comes to church here leaves at the end of the day and sees God and learns that day, but. So a lot of things to watch for. Nervous. Somebody's wearing real big, heavy, baggy clothes. And it's 80 degrees out. So, there's just a lot of things to watch for. And, most of it's kind of common sense things. There are a lot of good resources for church security anymore. One that I'll send videos to our team pretty regular is ChristianWarrior.com, former 30-year veteran from California, a drug SWAT guy, but great information for churches to watch and learn from. Signals to look for. Just a lot of great information. So fortunately, these days, and 5 years ago we didn't have this, but today, there are a lot of resources for church security and, things to watch for and keep people, learning skills on how to keep the church safe.
Yeah. I feel like doing church security would be harder than most places because you're letting everybody in. It's not like
we're a church,
like a baseball game where it's like, okay, well, people had to buy a ticket to be here and you have to go through metal detectors, and obviously we don't want to make our congregation have to walk through metal detectors every week or have to do some kind of background screening before they can come in. So with that, it's so open. You're more open to a lot of threats, and that's where the security team really comes into play because there's so much that you have to be on watch for because somebody could just easily slip through, and you just expect, there's a normal church guy. I think what's helpful about the church security though is y'all aren't in like bulletproof vests and very clearly security. You're just dressed as church guys. So like you said earlier, if we suspect something about a guy, we'll put a guy to sit behind him. And as far as he knows, you're just another guy in the church coming to hear the sermon and leaving, so that way if it's a false perspective on this guy, he's not going, oh, wow, they stuck a security guy right by. It's just another church guy.
He won't ever know.
Exactly.
It happened this Sunday. So, but, we are a church. Our job is to welcome people of all walks of life. A lot of times, if somebody's hurting, that's when you come to church. So, we want to be not noticeable to our members, but if somebody's driving through or looking at the church to do evil, there's enough signs that you'll see, that there's guys around with radios and all that. My goal is to deter people from wanting to do something here, because we're not a soft target. But for the members, not like you said, to see, security jackets with security and everything else. So we like to blend in, but we do want to be noticeable to people that, want to do evil, so that they're not going to pick, hopefully they will not pick this place, because it won't be a soft target for them. It won't be an easy thing for them to do. So,
well, and that's the other thing about going to a small town like this is it would be silly to pick a small town church, because it's not just the security team that's carrying, but a lot of the members also will have a gun. I know when we first moved here, our piano player would have a gun on her hip, and I was like always thinking it would be so funny if someone walked in and she'd stop playing piano, shot him, and kept going back to playing. I was just like, that's hilarious. So yeah, that's why I think like a small town, especially that's more country, would be
in the South
a terrible choice. Most of the time you see this stuff happens in like California and over there, but we have seen like there was a few this past year in Texas where it had happened. I remember there was a video of one in a church in Texas that went pretty big, where you see the security team reacting well, and they took out the threat before anybody got hurt. And so you see the cases where, okay, this is how that works well, and that's what he was saying. There's so many resources now where you can look and see videos, whether it's like just training modules or real life footage of stuff where you can see, okay, they did this and this worked out for them, but this is kind of what hurt these people. This is where they kind of fell short with that. And so a lot of good resources to make sure we got everything going the way it needs to go. The next question I have is, what are the most common incidents that churches deal with that security has to like take care of?
We have not had any serious issues at our church. And actually, back to the training. So the sheriff's office here in Pickens County has come and meet with our guys. We've done walkthroughs at the church. So the sheriff's office here in Pickens County is available for churches to come in, meet with you, do walkthroughs, and give their thoughts on church security. So that's another resource that we've used several times over the years. And they've come in, met with us, done walkthroughs with us. So another great resource. Most of our issues have been, so last Sunday, a guy came in, and I had seen him before, but I don't know him. But I was 95% sure he had a gun on his belt. So normally, the belt area is where you're going to carry a gun. So this guy, I don't know him personally, had a pistol, so followed him into service, sat behind him. We always had two guys out front, so I went in, and then someone else came out to sit out front. But just to make sure that there's not an issue, and after the fact, I saw who he interacted with, so I went and talked to that person, and they said that particular person's not an issue. So next time I'll know that not to be concerned with that one. But normally, the few issues we've had is, most of them have been where people are coming to the church asking for help. But there was something going on that was a little concerning. And our goal normally with something like that is, and the one that comes to mind, and this has been several years ago now, but guy pulled up in the front, and I think it was Hank and I were out front. He pulled up, got out of the car, and just kind of fiddled around. And this is, midway through service, and, just felt a little off. Middle Eastern looking guy, so another concern. And then, so Hank went out and spoke with him, and then they talked for a minute. The guy came in. We talked to him just out in the front for a few minutes, and was wanting gas to get somewhere. So actually, Hank and his son drove down to racetrack with the guy, got him some gas, sent him on his way. But the thing was, church is going to let out here in the next 5-10 minutes. So, any concern that we have, we want it resolved before, we've got 150 people rolling through the door that are going to turn this from, a nice quiet setting to a lot of kids running around wild and yelling and screaming and everything. So it's normally something like that. Just somebody that shows up, it feels off a little bit. And we'd like to get it taken care of before we've got a lot of people. Keep it up front or outside, and not have a lot of people around, so that just not room for a problem to start. So
it's funny because a lot of the stories that I hear, the people are always coming in like mid-service.
It is. For whatever reason, they'll roll in 11:30.
Yeah.
Because most services start at 11. So if you roll in at 11:30, you're in the middle of the service. So you're not going to be able to speak to the pastor and all. But for whatever reason,
it seems to happen a lot. And
most of the time,
I feel like more people too will come to ask for help. Obviously, I guess it's not public knowledge to people that don't go to our church that me and Dad are here every week. But I feel like we have more people rolling in asking for help when it's a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning. I don't know if it's just because they see there's so many cars in the parking lot and they go, okay, somebody's definitely there. But yeah, it seems to happen a lot. I know a couple weeks ago somebody came in mid-service of Wednesday night and needed some help, and we were able to help them out. Of course, I come down, we were filming videos, and I saw them sitting out in the chairs, and I looked over at the security team, and I went like that, pointed to them, and they just went like this, and I was like, all right, cool. I was like, they know about it. And then I do remember there was a story. Some guy rolled in like a trench coat, wanting to speak to he was like saying, I want to speak to the congregation.
Yes. Now that's whew.
That was like the most threatening I felt like incident that had happened.
And that was probably around COVID. It's been several years ago that guy rolled in. So that guy was from out of town. He kind of said he was not a reporter, but was wanting to interview people. And same thing, mid-service rolls in, and it dressed odd for the season and that kind of thing. So. And same thing, mid-service, service is about to get out. So he comes in front, we talk to him, and we take him and just put him in one of the offices because we're not going to have him talk to the folks at the church. So put him in a room with one of the security guys, and then the pastor and another security guy, I think, went in there and talked with them. But so that one probably was the sketchier of the incidents that's happened. But that one's been several years ago, and
I think he didn't realize how sketchy he was coming across, because when Dad was saying like, "Hey man, you could have the purest intention, but the way you rolled in, the way you're dressed, the way you've gone about this, now my entire security team has you on their radar."
High alert.
Yeah.
'Cause it didn't feel right.
Yeah, he was even like, "Hey, we're meeting here in this office right now. The door to my left, there's a guy standing out there, and the door right here, there's a guy standing out there, and you got this guy here." It's like everybody has their attention on you because of the way that you've rolled in and gone about this. Which you would think if you're out of town and you're going to ask something pretty not normal of like, "Hey, I want to speak to the people in your church," you would think that you would not dress so sketchy, not come in mid-service, like be a part of the service, sit in, go talk to the pastor after, and then say, "Hey, is there any way?" Of course, we would have probably said no even then, but we wouldn't be worried that he was going to do something to harm our congregation. You would think people would have the wherewithal to be like, "Hey, there's a certain way to go about this." Hey, maybe show up in church clothes and not a trench coat when you're wanting to sneak into a place that you're not a normal person at. I had one more question that's pretty much been answered there. Has there ever been situations that you had to de-escalate? Obviously there has been. We've heard those few stories, but I think what's interesting about the security team is you mentioned that there was a hang up yesterday that I didn't notice at all, didn't know anything about until just now, and I think that's one of the things that people don't realize about security is now that we have such a good security team that's on it and alert, that we can kind of check out of looking for threats and being worried about ourselves. We can go in and be spiritually present while somebody else is looking after kind of our safety. And I wonder how many things happen that people don't know about because y'all take care of it so quickly. That's what another thing that you said is y'all like to take care of it out in the parking lot before it becomes a threat.
And that's why we're outside of the doors greeting people, even in the winter. We're normally outside because everything's going to start in the parking lot. So if we can catch it in the parking lot and get it taken care of in the parking lot, that's a lot safer and better for everybody involved. Because once it gets in the door, and if somebody was in the service, then it's just a bad situation. So if we can look for and resolve issues in the parking lot, that's just so much better for everybody. And we try to do everything so that it's not noticed, because people are here to go to church, to worship, and so our job is to make it so you can be comfortable here. Like I said, if you ever do see something or have a concern about something or somebody, please let me know and let us look at it. But no, so we like to try to stay in the background, but out front, shake a lot of people's hands every Sunday morning and look for issues. And
I think that first interaction tells you a lot.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Obviously, the extreme would be if someone plans to shoot within the church. It's most likely their first time, so they're probably really nervous about it. I doubt that a first-time, terrorist is just going to be very calm and collected when he's coming into the place, probably going, "What the heck is going on? I'm scared." Yes. Obviously, you don't know. That's what another thing with going to a church that you don't know is, man, you don't know what kind of security they've got. You don't know what's going on there. I think church it's silly to go want to harm a church anyways, but I also think it's very, very risky because you don't know what you're walking into at all. Whereas, you see in the movies when people are about to rob a bank, they go in a couple times. They get the layout of the place. They know everything. And that's what's also scary. Someone could come in very easily and just attend church and, be planning something. You have no idea. And that's where the looking for the sketchiness is important. I had one more question that I thought of this morning. I put it, is it hard to balance being spiritually present while also staying alert to threats? And I would imagine it is because you kind of want to have your focus on keeping everybody safe. So is there some kind of, rotation so that, some of the guys are still being spiritually fed throughout the month and not just every week, maybe being out here and not getting to hear something? I know we used to throw the live up on the TV for those guys, but then I also felt like maybe that's a little bit of a distraction to them if they're, so anyways. Yeah,
so the way we normally work is two guys are up front every week. Most of the guys will carry a radio, even if you're not. So the two guys up front will have a radio. We'll make circles around the building, checking all the exterior doors, making sure everything's locked and there's nothing going on around the building. So those two guys are on, but the guys in the service will have a radio. So if there is an issue, the two guys up front can let somebody know inside that there's an issue in case somebody has to go outside and check something in the parking lot or deal with somebody. So we can bring somebody out and then alert the other guys that, there's something going on. So, be on high alert. But even when you're in the service, or at least me, I'll normally sit in the back and, I'm listening, but I'm always looking. And especially, like last Sunday when the guy, I went and sat behind him, so on that one, I am listening to the service, but, I'm watching this guy make sure that, there's not any issues.
Right.
But even if there's not a guy that we're concerned with, I'm just always just looking. But fortunately, we have been super blessed that never had any real serious issues. It's just been, things that kind of raised the hair on the back of your neck, and they didn't turn out to be a problem. So,
which is great. I also was going to ask you, is there are you looking to expand your security team? Are you looking to add more people, or is it about as full as you want it to be?
We've got a dozen guys, so we're in pretty good shape. Because that way, once a month you're up front in the rotation, and we've got a schedule for that. But like I said, everybody that goes here, you're part of the security team, because if you see anything, please let me know. And even if if there's a feeling that you're concerned about, let me know so that we can look at it and think about it. And, is there something that we can do better? So,
but we're also well taken care of, because there's a lot of people that aren't on the security team that also are ex-military and police. And so, there's so many trained people throughout the place that, I feel confident in the group that we have here and the leadership that they're under. But that's all the questions I had about security. I forgot to do sports recap, so I'm going to do that super, super quickly. And then if you had a top 5, we can dive into that. If not, we're getting close to the end anyways. So sports recap. San Antonio Spurs last night. We won, tying the series 2-2. They brought in this ref named Scott, who's known as the series extender. So yes, we won, but I don't know how proud I am, because the NBA, they want their series to go as long as possible, because if it goes to 7-game series, they've sold 7 games worth of tickets, 7 games worth of ad sales, all that stuff. So they get more money the longer the series goes. Thunder got up 2-1 on us. Then they brought in Scott, who's literally called the series extender, because people say he only calls fouls in the direction of whatever team is losing in the series. And so when I had heard that they were bringing in Scott for this game, I knew we were going to win, so I was very excited to watch. And we ended up winning by 20-something points.
Really?
After getting murdered last game. So we won, yes, and we did play very, very well. Our defense was great, and so we did earn the win. But I'm not fully proud of it, because Scott was there reffing. And, I felt, to be honest, I could be biased, I felt like he called the game pretty fairly. The Thunder like to flop and foul bait, which is against the NBA rules. If you're not doing a natural shooting form, it's foul baiting, and you can't do that. And they've been getting those calls in their favor all year long, and now Scott's not putting up with it anymore. So there's that. The Rangers... brutal loss last night, right before the start of the Spurs game. I was watching that. It was tied 1-1. A couple guys. There's a guy on first, I think. Maybe a guy on first and third. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. But the guy hits it. We're obviously in the field. Our second baseman goes to pick it up. Should be an easy routine double play. Ends the inning, and we keep playing baseball. But he bobbles it. And then when he finally gets it, just chucks it nowhere near the first baseman, and then they scored a walk-off on us. So very unfortunate way for that game to end. But, the Rangers aren't good this year, and I've come to accept that. Cowboys are never good. I've come to accept that in my 21 years of living. They've never been good. So I'm used to that. The Longhorns keep letting me down. But the Spurs, we might actually go to the finals this year. Didn't watch any Red Sox this week, so I can't tell you what's going on with them. And I didn't watch Atlanta Hawks because they lost and they're not in the tournament. The Falcons are terrible, but the Braves are the best team in baseball right now. So that's the one positive thing I'll say about a Georgia sports team today. But that is our very quick little sports recap. I don't know if you had a top 5.
I don't, but one thing I did want to mention, and you probably got this earlier, Memorial Day. So, Memorial Day, this is the day we remember veterans that gave their life for this country so that we could have a free country and enjoy all the things that we enjoy in this country. So, please take a minute today remembering, the soldiers that have lost their life in the last 250 years for this country, for it to be a free country as of today. So just remember, and the veterans that lost their life, but then, also remember their families, dads, brothers, and all sons that are gone. They have to think about this every day. So, just keep those families in your thoughts and prayers today too. So.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I slipped my mind to bring that up on the podcast. We played a little video during church yesterday that I thought was really, really good. Happy Memorial Day. I think a lot of people have like the day off of work? Is that how Memorial Day works?
Banking and government offices are closed.
I'm very glad I asked you that because I go to the bank and post office every Monday, so now I can put that off for tomorrow. Usually my Mondays consist of I film the podcast, I edit the podcast, I upload the podcast, and then I go to the bank and post office, and by that time my day's pretty much over.
Not today.
Yeah, so I don't know what I'm going to do with all this extra time. But anyways, I texted Haley and I said, hey, because it was late last night when I was thinking about it. And so my mom and dad were already asleep. I texted Haley, I said, what would be a good top 5 to do with Alan? She said, guns? I don't know. I said, that'd be a very hard. I said, also, I don't know enough about guns. I know the guns that I have. I know the guns that I would like to have. So we can do what's one gun that you don't have that you wish you did have or that you hope to have?
Daniel Defense is an AR manufacturer here in the state of Georgia. I've never had one of those, but it would be kind of neat to have one that's manufactured in Georgia. So
my friend just got a job offer from them.
Really?
So hopefully maybe they can hook us up.
That's right.
I want a Luger so bad it's disgusting. We were talking about this at the camping trip, and I didn't even realize how the Luger worked. You had told me to pull up this video, and it's I guess it's called the action of it.
Yeah, it hinges on the top.
It's so crazy looking. Obviously, that's the gun that Germans carried in World War II, and there's in the movies and the shows that were based in that. Anytime that one of the Americans killed a German, they would go hope that guy had a Luger on him and would take it with them. And so super, super cool gun, but it's insanely expensive to get one right now, especially one that was actually used in World War II. But yeah, that's really the only gun that I don't have that I've looked into a lot that I'm like, man, I would really like that. Obviously I want a 223 or 556, same thing. But Dad's got one, so I've been saying whenever he dies, then now I have one. So there's no need for me to go buy one because I'll get one. And so maybe a 300 Blackout would probably be my net because I've got a handgun or the 22 that Dad's got that we were shooting at your house that last time. No. That thing is sweet.
No, the little Smith 22 ARs are
that thing's super cool, cool. But yeah,
little rifle.
Yeah, no, I've very blessed and grateful to have all the guns that I do have. But I really don't know much about guns other than the ones that I have. Yeah, I haven't really looked into it. We did shoot that 50 cal that one time. I think it was at Kevin Fuquay's house.
And I missed that. So I've shot 50 cals in the past, but I missed his 50 cal shoot that time, but
it was crazy.
Big bullet.
When they said like you're gonna feel like a little blowback, I felt the fumes going up my nostril, like the gush of wind. I have the video. My hair goes straight back, and so I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." But then I realized just how crazy it was when the next person was shooting, and I was like 10 feet behind them, and I still felt that gush of wind.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Holy cow!" I feel like you could. Like, if you were to shoot a deer with that, I feel like you could miss the deer and it would still die.
Well, so that muzzle brake is pushing all those gases and all back here so that you don't feel as much recoil. So when you're behind it, it's not as bad. But if you're just to the side of it, that's not where you want to be.
So I didn't know that. It's designed to take out some of the kick?
It is. So that muzzle brake, the bullet's going here, and if you think about it, it leaving is pushing the rifle back, but that muzzle brake is designed so that it's pushing some of the gas so that it's not as much recoil felt on your shoulder.
That's interesting. So, how much is like one round?
50 cals, $2-3.
That's not as bad as I was thinking. Because they're
when
huge.
You're buying it in bulk.
Okay.
If you're buying it in big bulk.
Because when I was looking at it, they were huge, and I was like, dude, this is probably so expensive to let all these people come here and just shoot these up.
Well, and most of that's just military surplus ammo that's been sitting on a shelf somewhere for 30 years. So
that's sick. Well, hey, we're coming up it's about time. Huge thank you to Alan Box for coming on today.
Thank you.
And saving me and allowing you guys to be able to watch this episode, because a lot of you were going to boycott it if it was just me. Super, super grateful to have him here. No Wednesday night this week. That will kick off June 6th, I think. June 3rd, June 6th. It's the first Wednesday in June, I'm pretty sure. So no Wednesday night this week. Sunday is going to be regular schedule, so we will see you on Sunday.